Leah, thank you so much for coming. First, I just want to start to do some introductions. I'm Becky Cross, the Vice President of Client Services here at Fit Technologies. And we're here today to just learn a little bit more about everything you all are doing to empower our communities.
I'm Leah Luzier. I'm the Chief Operating Officer of Magnolia Management. And Magnolia manages education alternatives, Reach Behavioral Health, CJ Hendry, and we have a couple new ventures in the works, so Body Tonic Med Spa and The Daily.
It's exciting. I think, when I first met you, you started to dabble in these spaces. So just to help us a little bit, tell us a little bit more about each of these entities that you guys support and the impact that it has on your staff and your community.
Sure. So our first two companies, and I think when we first became a Fit client, we had Education Alternatives, which was the original company of ours, and then Reach Behavioral Health. Both of those companies were started by my family, by my parents, so they're kind of near and dear to my heart. They're companies that I grew up with as a kid and eventually started working for. So it's something that I've always imagined that I would support, just for my career. A few years ago, so back in 2015, we decided to kind of branch off from just Education Alternatives and Reach, and we formed Magnolia Management. And the idea behind Magnolia was to continue supporting Education Alternatives and Reach, will always happen, but to give myself and my brothers an opportunity to pursue our own goals as well.
That's exciting. Talk a little bit, for those who maybe haven't worked in the schools, about the difference between the EA schools and Reach and those programs and how they intersect.
Sure. So Education Alternatives provides special ed services to children with emotional behavioral disabilities. So it first started back in 1999 as an alternative placement for students who weren't succeeding in the public schools, and by that it usually means that they have a lot of aggression or a lot of mental health needs that prevent them from being able to stay in a public school setting. So Education Alternatives first started off focusing primarily on the academics for those children, but as the science came out and there was a lot of development in the mental health world, especially with kids with what we call developmental trauma, we started to add in the mental health component, and Reach was created back in 2011 in order to fully focus on the mental health needs of those same kids. Our schools are divided between Education Alternative staff and Reach Behavioral Health staff, where the EA staff are focused on the academic side of the child's needs, and then the Reach staff are working with them on the mental health needs. And then Reach, because it's a behavioral health agency, has also started to branch into community counseling as well. So we have locations that we've opened just in the past year in Elyria and West Park, and we have a new one opening in Ravenna. And those locations will focus solely on the community mental health needs, kind of branching out from Education Alternatives.
What's the mission behind that? Why branch out into the community?
I think there's just so much need. I think there was, prior to COVID, a lot of maybe normalization of mental health treatment. And so we just see a lot of demand, even prior to opening our community counseling, a lot of calls from the community saying, my child needs this, or I need this, or marriage, needs all different reasons for needing mental health treatment. And I think after COVID, not only was the need increasing, but I think the understanding that it's available and some of the stigma has decreased, that we're seeing a lot of referrals coming just from the community asking for mental health treatment. So we had always seen some community clients in our schools, but it's not really the type of environment that's conducive to counseling. The schools can be, for the staff that maybe are aware of it from FIT, they can feel a little chaotic, not necessarily the best place to have community clients coming in to try and get treatment. So we started creating our mental health counseling centers in the different cities in order to meet that need.
Tell me more about how COVID has impacted some of these growth strategies and how you all have adapted to that.
So from a business growth strategy, I think it's unfortunate actually that COVID seems to have created more of a need for kids to be educated in a different way from the public schools. We've seen a lot of referrals from kids that were basically home for a year. And so that not only are they academically more behind than they would have been pre-COVID, but they also have a lot more mental health challenges from being home and not being around just healthy relationships for an entire year.
How has technology helped empower some of the growth in these different areas?
Well, we have this great company called Fit that supports all of our technology needs. And I definitely think we've become more tech savvy over the past couple years. I think we had a good basis in terms of having equipment and kind of the platforms that we needed and stuff like that. But like a lot of companies, overnight we were jumping on Zoom. We were kind of coming up with all these different resources we needed, not only to keep the education and therapy going on, but then also just for our employees, like our management employees, to meet and, just having all of those resources available is really important. We had already been 365 clients, and so basically all of our information was available to us. So we literally had employees that were taking their desktops home and just setting back up at home, but because we were kind of already in the cloud and we weren't supported on kind of like our antiquated servers and stuff like that, which you guys had helped us get rid of pre-COVID, we basically just picked up and moved to our homes and continued to run the company. So that was really kind of lucky for us, because I think had COVID hit a year or two earlier, we would not have been ready to move that quickly.
So I would like to talk a little bit more about these med spas. Tell me about them. I've heard they're gorgeous. Tell me more about the backing around this and what it's intended to look like.
Sure. So the med spa is a little bit out of left field, kind of at first glance, in terms of a industry that we would go into. There are a lot of factors that started us down this path. We thought, we have the ability already to run these service-based industries. It's the setup and kind of the process of the med spa is not very different than how we set up our counseling centers. So everything from having reception, having clients in a waiting room, having all these different treatment rooms, dealing with staff that have licensures, in this case medical professionals, it felt a lot more parallel to our current companies than you might have guessed at first glance.
If there was one thing, that you would want to leave as a takeaway or some type of words of advice for our team,
I would say to Fit, just keep doing what you're doing. I think you guys are an incredible company, and I've always really appreciated, ever since becoming a client, that you take this whole technological world that I was very green in and probably am still pretty green in when we first started our relationship, and you make it very easy for us to digest, and you're able to point out, hey, there's all of this stuff happening that you might not be aware of, but let me make it very understandable so we can make a plan to continue moving things forward. I think that's been really helpful for us just over the past years of our relationship.
Excellent. Well, thank you again for your time. Looking forward to seeing these med spas.
Yeah, Fit is welcome anytime, so just come on in.
Okay, thanks.
And thank you for having me. I really appreciate this.